I was told that I have to stand between these two red lines, but I want everybody to think outside the box, so not going to stay there. I'm Yoram. I'm the CEO of Cannabilog. I'm here together with my colleague Nico from QCS. And the whole idea is today is to be really practical. Okay? So I thought just got a great presentation about what's going on in Germany, and I'm taking my role to explaining what's going on around the world. So the whole idea will be about international logistics of cannabis products, and this is what I prepared for you today. 2 slides about myself. Up until 5 years ago, I was the head of global supply chain and logistics for Teva Pharmaceuticals, the largest generic company in the world. 14 years, I didn't sleep too much, and I'm coming from the pharma industry. So my background is really strong in the whole area of pharma. Then I decided to jump into the medical cannabis area. Cannabilog, that's the company I founded about 4.5 years ago. If you remember, 4.5 years ago, everybody was dealing with licenses, cultivation, production. Nobody really knew what's going on. The regulations were not that clear. And since then, we are acting and moving cannabis into and out of many, many countries. I like to call ourselves global, but it's what we call glo-legal. So this is what we do. We move cannabis around the world. I'll start with the agenda, short. So what I really would like to share with you today is our experience, the challenges that you suppose or will see when you're going into the international arena or the international trade of cannabis. What are the points that you need to pay attention, and how actually we are overcoming all those challenges. So my presentation is really the practical side of life. What's new? So first of all, it's not the first time that I will tell you that this world, and if you don't understand it yet, you will, it's changing all the time. New countries are coming to the party, new regulations, a lot of changes. You have to stay every morning with new news, with changes, with updates. There's a lot of stuff going on. Just look what happened in the last 2 months, right? Germany with new regulation, 2 kinds of regulation. One about the prescription and the other about the clubs, right? Please raise your hand if you fully understand what's going on with those clubs. Perfect. Then later on you will present it. So if you in Germany doesn't understand it, think about the whole people in the world that does it. We just don't understand it, or maybe not completely understand it. Israel just changed the regulations, same thing. Greece changed the regulations, and so on and so on. New EU GMP facilities are coming through. Yes, people or companies or production sites that you may use in order to produce EU GMP products here for this market. Industry changes. Yeah, a lot of companies are almost bankrupt or on the edge. Look at what's going on in Canada, right? All the big guys are not that big anymore. Just yesterday, we heard about Denmark, right? Aurora closed their operations over there. Also in Israel, several of the big companies disappeared. So the market and the whole thing and the whole economic model is changing. Same thing about new markets. Who thinks that there are more than 6 big markets in the world? Raise your hand. That's it. 5, 6 big markets. Australia, Germany, Israel, UK, Switzerland, more or less. Canada is not a market, it's a local market, but they don't allow imports, okay? I mean, you know, in the international trade, you're right, Canada is maybe the biggest, but they are in internal or domestic. So anyway, more countries are coming in. Yesterday we had a very good presentation about France. Good luck, it will take time. Okay, so what are really the markets? And markets, I mean, you know, several dozens of thousands of patients. There's a way to go. And of course, new import-export opportunities. Uh, Thailand, right? Raise your hand. Thailand. Okay, how many people are talking about export from Thailand? A lot of people are calling you probably, want to sell you products from Thailand. It's okay, but it's not legal yet, or it's gray or whatever. It will be there. And the reason I'm putting it here is because make sure that you fully understand what's going on, because we hear a lot of stories. I think I can write such a book about stories, but practically, you know. Anyway, so let's jump into the global logistic challenges. When we speak about logistics in the cannabis world, we want to talk about those 6 pillars that just the combination of them will give you the understanding of what we are talking about. The first thing is the regulatory compliant. So the first thing you have to understand that it's nothing like general regulations. Every country has its own regulations, okay? I don't want to go into it, like we can talk about until the evening why, but governments doesn't know what to do with cannabis. They're struggling how exactly to put the regulations around. Look at Germany, right? Those clubs, come on. Okay, that's just another try how to kind of manage the market with any kind of regulation as long as they say that it is regulated. So regulatory compliance, very, very important. And when it comes to import and export, always the regulations in the exporting country are different from the importing country. You have to remember that. And if you want to do international trade, you make sure that you know both sides. Security. We don't have to talk too much about security. I must tell you that some countries we are not moving even one leaf unless we have guarded the convoy together with the truck. And I'm serious about it. Armed guards with the truck to move between sites or airports or whatever. Quality assurance. Medical cannabis, welcome. It's a medicine. The same regulation that I had in Teva or any other pharmaceutical product, it's for medical cannabis. Same exact regulations. GDP, GMP, GSP, G whatever P. Okay? These are the regulations exactly like in the pharma world. Nothing you can do about it. And if it's a medicine, you have to treat it as a medicine. Otherwise, you cannot release it to the market. So quality, assurance, and everything that comes together with it is part of our industry when we are talking medical cannabis. Don't confuse yourself. You're saying, yeah, recreational, it's not the same. Recreational cannabis, which is not medical, in my belief, and again, Germany, it won't be free. It won't be something that you grow in the field and you sell to the market. It will have to be regulated somehow with quality, with those types of restrictions. On-time delivery, big issue. You can plan whatever you want to plan, and then there is a custom clerk in an airport somewhere will hold your shipments because they want to examine it, they want to open the boxes. Don't allow it. Don't allow it. They want to open the boxes, they will review the documents, we just had a big article about a shipment from Uganda to Israel, was held for 2 months. Now you want to sell the products in the market? 2 months at Addis Ababa airport with no temperature control. So it may happen. It's not happening a lot, but it may happen. So on-time delivery is something that you need to really, really plan in advance. And I'll talk about, for instance, clones or something a bit later on. Expertise. Make sure that you understand what you're doing. Make sure that if you are working with a forwarder, you are not selling or you are not delivering not t-shirts from Turkey and not cucumbers. Okay, although it might be an agricultural product, it's not. It's a narcotic product, medicine. And I'm telling you that when the combination of medicine and agricultural product, if we're talking about flowers, it's something that usually you don't see in the pharma area. So it requires a lot of expertise. And the last thing is global. No matter what, guys, we're sitting here in Germany, Most of the products in Germany are not produced in Germany and not grown in Germany. You know that. So it means that we'll have to move. We'll have to move products from one country to the other, whether within Europe or outside Europe. Look at Canada. Canada was stuck last year with 80 tons of overcapacity. Every Canadian call me and say, Yoram, I want to sell my products. Where can I sell it? So the international trade of cannabis is something that we see rising. Okay, there's no sense to grow in Germany. There is sense to grow in South Africa. How do you move it? How can you count on it? That's the idea of being global. So a little bit of what we saw, the trends in 2023. We saw a lot of products coming out of Canada. I just mentioned it. We saw a lot of rise in the South Africa, to Australia, to Europe. Some good sites in South Africa just get their EU GMP certification, so we see that rising. We see a lot out of Portugal. We see a lot more from Uruguay and Colombia. We just finalized a shipment from Colombia to Australia. And we see a lot of movements within Europe. And this is just the beginning, okay? As we are moving on, it will be more and more and more lanes that we will have to develop and to make sure that it's working. And you know that the regulations are not that easy. Australia changed regulation not the last July, and all of a sudden, some companies couldn't even export more to Australia. So this is what we see these days. A little bit about the potential. I don't want to go into these graphs too much, but we see the potential of the cannabis industry, the international trade. We see some figures about Australia. There are numbers, okay? We saw a lot of numbers yesterday and this morning. That's expectations or forecasts. There's no question that we are talking about a market that will grow, but we will have to have a little bit patient until it will happen. Few words about regulations. The last thing I want to do now is to explain you all the regulations. What I want to show you is that it's very confusing. If you Google it and you'll ask yourself what are the global regulations for cannabis, you will get a lot of maps like this. This is a map for cannabis. This is a map of medical use. Okay? Don't even take a picture of it. You know why? Because there are some more maps changing all the time. So if one thing I want you to learn out of my presentation, that it's an ever-changing issue. Okay? Even countries that already have cannabis regulations are changing them. I don't want to say constantly, but they're changing. So whatever map you're looking at, don't rely on it too much. Okay? Just make sure that you are really looking at updated things. Good morning, Europe. Okay? One map. Another map. Some map that we saw yesterday, some map that we saw this morning, and another one, right? What are the regulations in Europe, guys? Usually when I'm lecturing about it, I'm asking, who is the most liberal country in Europe for cannabis? Who would say Germany? Who would say Holland? Most of the people will say Holland, right? Coffee shops in Amsterdam, you walk in, you smoke. So just that you know that Holland is one of the most restricted countries in terms of cannabis in Europe. There's a lot of issues, okay? Some are stories, some are okay. What I'm trying to say here is don't even try to remember that, because it's changing and because it's updating and because a lot of what you see on Google is not accurate information. And it is, I mean, you understand the idea. Now, I want to be a little bit more practical now. So just that you know, every country by the UN Treaty from 1961 had, if they want to do deal with medical cannabis, they need a specific governmental agency to deal with the cannabis regulations. So every country that joined the party, in a way, created a regulatory special agency that will grant you the licenses, that will check your import and export, that will control the market. Actually, everything that you want to do with cannabis, cultivate, produce, move, store, import, export, whatever, has to go through one of those, agencies. You have to know them, you have to understand it. Some of them are someone from an agency like this, so I can speak freely, right? Some of them are a nightmare. Some of them are very good. Some of them will give you a license within 2 weeks. Some of them will give you a license within 6 weeks. There's a lot of issues around those agencies, but you need to know what are the agencies that you are dealing with and what are the agencies that your customer or your provider is dealing with, and how long it will take to get a license or to get an approval or to get a document or whatever you need. And this is by law. It's not volunteering. It is by law that every country need to create this specific agency, like BFARM in Germany, OMC in Holland, Israel Yakar, I don't know, Swiss, how do you call it, Swiss Medic in Switzerland and so on. So whatever you do, you need these guys to deal with them, no matter what. And some of them are, as I said before, are really heavy. When we're talking about cannabis, we need to understand that we are talking about a variety of products. It will start with the genetics, can be seeds, tissue cultures, cuttings. Cuttings, you know that cuttings, in order to ship cuttings around the world, they must be unrooted cuttings, which means there's no way that they can drink water. So if you cut them and you don't put them in the water in 3-4 days, they're dead. That's it. So you have 3-4 days to cut it from in the field and to bring it to the customer on the other side, okay? With a high level of success. Otherwise, they are not useful anymore. So those type of challenges that you will have with the genetics. Then you have dried flowers in bulk. Then you have crude, distillate, isolate, what I call APIs, or we will call extracts. And then you have packed finished goods, are different from the dried bulk flowers. Herbal medicines, CBD products. Welcome. CBD products, US, EU, can we move it? Is it legal? 0.2, 0.3, Switzerland with 1%. Good luck, okay? Just to understand the regulations around that. But in CBD products, we have cosmetics, we have food additives, we have veterinary products. I don't know if you know, but you can give your dog CBD products. If he barks, he goes to sleep. If he's sleeping, he will bark, but it's working. Smokable products and so on. So there is a variety of products, and each one of those will require a different logistic solution, as well as different documentations, licenses, regulations, and so on. Each one of these is different from the other, and it requires real understanding how exactly we can move it from one place or one country to the other. Quality, right? We're talking about a plant, flower. On the other hand, it's a medicine. So we have to adhere to all those quality requirements. Otherwise, your QP will not approve it for release to the market. At the end of the journey, there is a QP that will have to release it to the market, exactly as they release paracetamol to the market or any other pharmaceutical product. So how is that working? How can you make sure that you are adhering to those GMP and GDP regulations? Now, if you think that logistics is just GDP, you are wrong. Logistics is also a big part of your GMP. When auditors will come to audit you from whatever agency, they will make sure that the logistic part of your GMP is adhering to the regulations. So look at it, okay? Country-specific regulations, EU regulations, FDA, whatever is there. Plant-based medicine, we spoke about it, must adhere to the pharma standard, maintaining products integrity along the way. If you don't have a clean data logger at the end of the journey, products are not going to be released unless you go to investigations and so on. So the same regulations for the pharma applies to the medical cannabis, including everything. Temperature control, 15 to 25 degrees usually, okay? All the way through with a clean data logger. If you have excursions, good luck. It's part of the logistic chain that you have to adhere to. Full temperature control and rejection and acceptance criteria. One point that I want to make here, whenever you have a customer, if you sell your products, make sure that you understand their acceptance criteria, not yours, their acceptance criteria, because if they will not accept your products, it's not going to work. So before you even ship, before you even pack, make sure that you have the right laboratory tests or the right documentation to prove that you can work with their acceptance criteria. This is just a general slide to show you how we should maintain the integrity of the products going from the production cultivation site, packing, labeling, documentation. You know, in some countries, if you right hand on your label, on your bag label, it will not be accepted. By the way, if you write it, make sure that it's in blue, not in black, but don't. I mean, it has to be printed. Otherwise, they will not accept it. There are some countries that if the label on the bag will not contain the batch number, the net weight, the gross weight, and the date, or the validation date, they will not be accepted. You have to know that. Either from our customers or from a company like us, you have to know how it will be treated. Packaging. How many kilos you put in a box? How many kilos you put in a bag? I'm talking about bulk flowers, right? All those issues are really part of how you actually pack and treat your products. Then you have to take a temperature control vehicle to bring it to the airport to make sure that it's not standing too long on the tarmac. I don't know if you, probably a lot of you already saw the chart of the data loggers, right? Always two peaks, the tarmac before takeoff and the tarmac after landing. Those are the more or the most critical point. How you minimize that? How you see all the freight outside? If it's a summer day with 25 degrees, the data logger of this shipment will show 60 degrees. The same thing with your car. If you park your car in the summertime, when outside it's, I don't know, 25, 30 degrees, depending on which country you are, inside it will be 60, 70 degrees. It's absorbed a lot of heat. The heat cannot go out. Same thing. So how you minimize that? How you make sure that you have a good thermal protection in order to not having those excursions on the tarmac. Flight, tarmac, and then until you deliver it to the other side. Everything has to be temperature controlled with data loggers, with thermal protection, and making sure that the processes are working. This is exactly applies to pharma and applies to medical cannabis. Same exact thing. And this is just a technical chart. GSP security. Okay, as I said before, some countries you don't move a leaf unless you have armed guard. And by the way, some countries, it's part of the regulations. Like in Israel, for instance, you cannot move more than, I think, 15 or 20 kilos without guards. But some countries like South Africa and Lesotho, we don't move it without a vehicle, together with the truck, with armed guards. So make sure that you do understand, in one hand, the regulation, and in the other hand, the practical measures that you have to take. Secure transportation, distribution, tempering and diversion, avoidance, special packages, all kinds of things. And the last thing is special insurance coverage. Make sure that you have a good insurance coverage. We have a specific policy for cannabis, door-to-door, all-risk coverage, specifically built for cannabis shipments. It's not that easy to get insurance for cannabis. but it's a must because things may happen and you have to be covered. Okay, so don't forget at the end to have an insurance coverage that covers cannabis products. Okay, and you have to declare it's cannabis products. If you declare it as a general cargo, whatever, it will not work. Operational challenges. Okay, so we picked how long? Don't know. So we picked up the shipment, and now what? I can tell you a lot of stories around it. We had once a shipment, we picked it up, we brought it to Toronto airport, and it was smelling. They didn't pack it good enough. They, how to say, they didn't close the bags with heat. They stapled it, and the airline refused. You know why they refused? They were afraid that the smell will influence the pilots, and it's a long flight, so the pilots can have a party. So they rejected it. So we had to send it back and repack it. So there's a lot of issues about how you actually operate your shipments. Land transportation, air freight, whatever is applies, there's a lot of issues. Custom clearance. You have to know that most probably you will, the customs will physically check, not necessarily open the boxes, but will check documents. Other authorities, okay? In Israel, you have to clear shipment from 2 authorities. In the US, when it's applicable, you have to release your shipments from 4 authorities. So you have to understand how does that work. Physical examinations, all kinds of delays, you have to take it into consideration. And we always recommend online traceability. Online data loggers are not just for the temperature, it's also the position. So now you know that your shipment is being delayed in whatever airport or whatever location, and you can track it. So we always recommend to use at least 2 online data loggers. Our recommendation is 1 data logger per pallet, at least 2 online data loggers. Very important. They're a little bit more expensive, but you can get it on your screen and you can track it and you can make sure that it's flowing on. The last thing I want to say is this is the full end-to-end control is not voluntarily. This is a requirement, but by all the pharma agencies. I want you to have who is from the UK here? Beside you guys? MHRA, okay? Good luck. They want to see that you have control all over the supply chain, okay? They will check it. They will audit it. So you better show them that you are applicable in that. Okay, so I'm coming into the close in 2, 3 more slides. First of all, I'm showing you here again by the way, don't get me wrong, it's not just Lufthansa, but a lot of stuff is staying by the aircraft and not on the inside the aircraft, and it's a risk. But in general, very limited airline. Not all the airlines are carrying cannabis. A lot of them are refusing it. So if you plan a shipment to Australia, there's just very few airlines that can make that. So be aware to that. It's not like we're buying a ticket online. It's not. Some airlines will not carry it. So it means high cost. Another thing you have to know that when you are booking a flight is not a regular freight. When you want to book a cannabis shipment, it will take 2 to 3 days for the airline to approve it. They will check the licenses. They will go to their headquarters. And if you have a transshipment in the middle, let's say you use Emirates, okay, and go through Dubai or Abu Dhabi or whatever to Australia, they will have to get their approval for the transshipment. So it may take 2, 3 working days before they even confirm that you can book your shipment. Takes time. May say no, or may say maybe, or whatever. So it takes time, the okay to forward. Time, we spoke about the transshipment point. Some forwarders, unfortunately, are not declaring cannabis. They may declare pharmaceuticals, they may declare perishables. Wrong. You should make sure that they declare cannabis and they pay, or you pay, they charge you for that, for pharmaceutical grade service. Don't attempt to go to the low price of general cargo, it's not going to work. Make sure that you put cannabis in place and that you require pharmaceutical grade service from the airline, which means that they will store it, they will carry it, they will take care of it, and they will try to maintain the 15 to 25 degrees. If you are not using a pharmaceutical service, most probably it will not work. And the last one, make sure you are not landing in purpose or by mistake on a US soil. Okay? I don't want to mention like FedEx or others which are using US as their hub. Don't. US will not accept cannabis even if you just landed for like a transshipment, okay? We had an airline without names taking a shipment from Canada to Europe, and by mistake, never mind, they landed in the US. And the DEA confiscated the shipment, by the way, against all the international law. They didn't have any legal background to do it, but they did. So now you want to argue with them, right? Go hire a lawyer, take them to court, take 2 weeks. They released it at the end because it was illegal to do. So don't even try that, okay? US, out of the picture in logistics. Just don't do it. Unless it's CBD less than 0.3 and it's directed to the US. But if it's going through the US, by the way, some countries in South America, most of the flights are operating through the US. Don't do it. Inland transportation within Europe. So now we developed a very, very good service, very reliable service within Europe. You can fly, but you can always do land transportation. In the past, there was a lot of issues whether you can, let's say this is shipping from Portugal to Germany. So you have to go through Spain and you have to go through France. Both countries, cannabis is not legal. So we weren't sure whether we can cross the borders or how exactly to do it. Eventually we are doing it. It's a simple process, and you can see here clean temperature, straight, less than 36 hours, and very secured service. So today in Europe, few trucking company GDP certified with all those arrangements that I spoke before that can do such services. Be aware that not all the trucking company can do it. Be aware that when you do it, you need a full truck, point to point. Don't consolidate in the middle. Don't let them, loading and outloading. Forget it. It has to be point to point, secured, GPS, temperature control, certified truck with a GDP certification. Don't play game with that. This is the only way to make it. Just few lessons learned from what we learned during the time. First of all, this industry, there's a lot of mistrust between sellers and buyers. We know that, right? A lot of stories, a lot of issues. So you have to make sure that you are dealing with trusted logistics service providers that can really do the job without too many stories. First of all, packages. Guys, if you want, I can give you a lot of advice about our packing protocols, what boxes to use, what sizes of boxes to use, how many kilos to put inside. There's a lot of issues around that, but make sure that you use an optimal box. You can take it from me, 40 centimeters by 60 centimeters, fits exactly to a Euro pallet. Okay? I see so many sizes. I see so many non-optimal sizes that you are paying so much money for the volume instead of just changing your box. Box, not more than that. The bags that you're using, the labels, the physical protection that you're putting around. Packaging are not just a cardboard. There's a meaning to that. License validity. Too many of the companies, because it takes time to get the licenses, we see them like in the last week, rush, ship it out. Try not to do it. Leave enough time for the validity of a license before you need to ship it. Licenses are usually between 3 to 6 months validity, and don't wait to the last minute, because if it's expired, it's dead. Avoid weekends. Don't ship over weekends. A lot of companies are coming to, yeah, pick it up on Friday. No, we'll pick it up on Monday. Not because we want to delay the shipment. It's because you don't want to stuck on a weekend with a truck or at the airport or with customs. It just increase your risk because of temperature issues, because of security issues. Try to ship at the beginning of the week and not toward the end of the week. It's not always working. It's not the end of the world, but just as a suggestion, try to avoid weekends. It's not a good idea. And original documents. I don't want to go to this argument. Original documents are required. One last slide. These are the do and the don'ts. So import and export regulation, basic, we spoke about it. Sales certification, make sure that you're dealing with the right certifications. Don't sign deals with someone who doesn't have the certification that will allow you to bring in the products. Import-export permit, quality, logistics, security along the journey, and dedicated insurance. And plan your flight carefully. I spoke about the example about the US. There are so many examples about that. Make sure that you understand pharma service, transshipment, schedule, capacity, and so on. And one last thing. Don't never ship anything before we make sure that we can clear it on the other side. This is the practice of our companies. We don't even pick up a shipment before we send the documents to the other side and make sure that we can clear it. Because if you cannot clear it, you can kiss it goodbye. It will have to go to destruction. There's no way back. And it can be a big shipment. So don't ever ship before your logistics service provider or yourself will make sure that you can clear it on the other country. I already spoke a lot about the differences in the regulations. So it's a bad idea to send something to Australia and not be able to clear it. You understand it. So thank you very much. I don't know if we have time for questions or later. I already behind. So thank you very much.